If Gina Carano's contract negotiations with the UFC were put on Facebook, it would be described as it's complicated. Welcome in to MMA Live. My name is Todd Grisham. Dana White said last week that Gina Carano would be signed by the UFC by now, and yet she has not been. Why, you ask? Well, let's dive into this a little deeper. We bring in our MMA writer for ESPN.com, Brett Okamoto, who joins us from Las Vegas. And Brett, what's the very latest on Gina Carano coming to the UFC?
Well, the latest news on Gina Carano is that there is no news, according to UFC President Dana White. As you mentioned, he met with Carano. Carano, her representatives, and UFC CEO Lorenzo Fertitta met last week in Los Angeles on Monday. And Dana White was really optimistic that they were going to hammer out a deal. They wanted to bring Gina Carano in to fight Ronda Rousey at UFC 181 on December 6th in Las Vegas. Does not look like that fight is going to materialize. And it's complicated, as Dana White said. He didn't want to go into specific details, but you got to believe that timing has a little bit of an issue to deal with this. Gina Carano is scheduled to begin filming on a project in late summer. So not looking like we're going to see Carano in 2014. What that means is Ronda Rousey will have to move on to a different opponent. I wouldn't say that the talks are dead by any stretch of imagination between the UFC and Carano. The UFC is putting a lot of effort to bring her in. It seems like she is passionate enough to fight and get in to compete again in the octagon, but it's not going to happen right now.
A fight with Ronda Rousey would be huge for the UFC, no doubt about it. But after being away from the sport for 5 years, does Carano deserve a title shot, an immediate title shot, when and if she does return?
You know, there's two different ways of looking at that. At one, absolutely not. As you mentioned, 5 years away from the sport, how does Carano come in and deserve a title shot? How would that make sense? It's a good question. On the other hand, she was a pioneer for female mixed martial arts. There is no question about it. She is partially responsible for where the sport is right now, the exposure that the sport is getting in the UFC right now. So based on that alone, does she deserve to fight Ronda Rousey? And this is a fight Ronda Rousey wants. She's asked for it. She says that Carano is partially of the reason why she competes in mixed martial arts. So anytime a champion wants a specific opponent in combat sports, it tends to happen. You want to give champions what they want, and this is a big fight for the UFC. So at first, I just want to see Carano sign with the UFC. Let's see when that happens. Let's see what the division looks like at that point, and then we'll talk about whether or not she deserves to be in the title shot immediately.
Alexis Davis was 3-0, an active fighter, and she lasted all of 16 seconds. If the fight does happen between Rousey and Carano, how competitive do you think it would actually be?
I don't think the fight would be competitive at all. I don't think that Carano would have stood a chance against Rousey's judo and her armbar when she was an active fighter. And now you take 5 years off, and she said that she's been training in the meantime, but training as your profession and getting into a cage and fighting 3 times a year is far different than just training for fun and keeping your skills up for recreational purposes. So I don't think Gina Carano would stand a chance against Ronda Rousey, but then again, who is standing a chance right now against Ronda Rousey? No one's making it out of the first round, so Carano is not alone in that mix.
Well, if the fight does happen, no doubt it will be the biggest fight, women's fight, in UFC history, regardless of whether it's competitive or not. But first things first, Carano has to sign with the UFC. If she does, we'll certainly bring it to you here on MMA Live.